in
So
their
Veach.
in their
All
world,
right.
it has to be actually natural. It has to happen
Mhm.
by itself, unstimulated, and not be man-made.
And if you notice, that requires no hard work, no effort, no intelligence. It's very easy to slam it to gods or to slam some, oh, we don't know, we don't have the funding, or we don't have the resources, or the countries are conspiring on us, or because we are like the freedom seekers, the truth seekers. It's very easy to say that and dismiss everything.
Cell phones work
So
by magic.
Veach, you there still, Veach?
How on earth can anybody propose that experiments come before theories and ideas? It's just absolutely ridiculous. Like experiments
Can't get a
somehow
theory.
apparently just
How
manifest
do
themselves out of
you
thin
get?
air.
How do you
An
get a
experiment, the
scientific
point of an
theory?
experiment. Why
How
are you
would you get
talking
a
over me,
scientific
Jeremy?
theory?
Are you trying
Because
to
I'm wondering if
censor
you
what
don't think
I'm
you have to
trying to
do an
say?
experiment, I'm wondering how do you get a
Why
scientific
does he
theory
not want
without the
to hear what
experiment?
I have to say? Why is that? Why is what I say so dangerous and so poisonous to him? He can't bear it.
Because Jeremy's a
Ignorance.
government shill trying to silence the opposition.
Fucking ignorance, that's all it is. You learn that over the years of being in here. You get the ignorant ones and the ones
I
that
mean,
listen.
he cited Feynman, who is on record, on video record, of saying, you have a guess. And in his lecture, when he says you have a guess, the audience laughed and he stopped and he looked at them and he said, no, you have a guess. You test it with an experiment. And if the experiment fails, your guess is wrong and you move on to another idea. This is how
That's
science
correct.
works. How the hell you can suddenly jump straight to an experiment before you have an idea is fucking absurd.
My question to you, sir, is how do you get a scientific theory without doing an experiment? Go.
You
Myers
guess,
per channel. Go.
you have an idea. You see a natural phenomena and you wonder, how does that work? You don't
That's not
suddenly
a
think,
scientific
yes,
theory.
it is. You don't suddenly think,
What are you
I'm going to
you're
heat
fucking
some water
retarded.
and put a
Put Veach back
thermometer in
on.
it. I don't know why I'm heating some water with a
Put Veach back
thermometer in
on.
it,
You're a retard.
but I'm
Put
decided
Veach
to,
back on.
yeah.
Yo, put Veach back on. You're an idiot.
He's doing fine. Don't be rude, man. That's obnoxious.
Veach,
Yeah,
how do you
so,
get a
Jeremy-
scientific theory? Veach, how do you get a scientific theory without doing an
Punch you in
experiment?
your one good eye.
There's
Veach,
a lot of ways. There's a lot of ways this
let's
happens,
hear
Jeremy.
one. Let's hear
Okay,
one.
you make observations. You make observations,
And then
and
you
then
just get a scientific theory.
yes, you use analysis and logic. You come up with a theory. For example, an example of that would be you
A
use a
scientific theory.
An example of that would be you use a telescope to notice that there's stars are all shifted in color. Some of them are red shifted, some are blue shifted. What's going on? And so you observe this at length, and you look in all different parts of the sky, and you catalog all these different observations you have, and then you sit down and you come up with a theory. And the theory you might come up with is the universe is expanding.
And that's how you get a scientific theory with no experiment.
That's one of the ways.
Yeah,
Let me ask you a
Jeremy
question.
with one eye alone.
Let me ask you a question, Jeremy. How many experiments, Feynman, who's, by the way, the central author of a couple of different theories, one of which he won the Nobel Prize for, how many experiments did he do, you think?
No, it's irrelevant. I want to hear more.
The answer is zero. The answer is zero. So somehow he came up with those theories that he won the Nobel Prize for without doing any experiments. So you tell me how that happened.
Okay, well, let's hear one of the ways you get a scientific theory without doing an experiment. Then
He thought really hard. You can watch his lectures, and if you ever went to the original source material, you'd learn these things on your own. Watch the lecture that the Zara, I think, was just talking, or yeah, he was just telling you about it. That's a great lecture, and he talks about it. He sits and thinks really, really hard. That's what he said.
okay, so you can get a scientific theory from just thinking really hard.
Sometimes, if you're Feynman.
Don't worry, Jeremy.
Focusing on the inner chi of thinking comprehension, thought
I'll be right back.
processes, organized thought processes, hyperfocus. You know what hyperfocusing is? It's really nice.
It's holding that question there so that you can still remember it at the end of the lecture. Well, a string of questions, actually. And
Yeah.
No, you have to have the experiment first in order to have your theory, and your experiment has to be tested multiple times. Not necessarily. It depends on the situation, what you're trying to prove. Yeah.
Ultimately, the first experiment resulted from the first observation, which then prompted a thought of how or why does that observation, do what I've just seen, work?
Right, exactly. That's how I came to my earthquake.
Original science, the original first experiment would have been as a result of the first theory. The theory comes first. The theory is an idea with a wonder in the question. I wonder what, I wonder how. But you don't, like I said, try to start saying, you don't one day stick a thermometer in some water that you're heating and suddenly go, oh look, I'm doing an experiment.
You only do that after
and then
the
you think,
thought.
why would I be doing this experiment? What am I trying to do with a thermometer in some heated water? That's just ridiculous.
You're trying to prove to yourself that mercury rises based off of heat.
No, how would you? But why? Why would you?
Because you're questioning why mercury rises in a container.
But why?
Based off.
You don't have a thermometer. You don't have a thermometer because if you didn't have a thermometer, you wouldn't know what principle the thermometer worked on and why you would be encapsulating an amount of mercury in an evacuated envelope with a scale on it.
Well,
Why would that spontaneously? Listen. Why would you spontaneously construct something so complicated, so specific, without any reason? You have ideas about, you understand physics through previous experiments first, and then you wonder why, and you solve the questions of why these observations happen. But the thing that comes first is the observation. You see that in circumstances, the material mercury seems to change size with heat. But that's an observation from some accidental or random event, not the other way around.
You have to have full interest in it in order to even.
So Flatsoid, I don't know if Flatsoid just joined us. So Flatsoid, what they're telling us, you should hear what they're telling us. Jeremy asked about scientific theory, and they suppose they can have a theory without an experiment. And
I mean, if you've come up with the idea before.
Hold on, Flatsoid trying to say. Hold on, did you not hear Flatsoid? Go ahead, Flats.
Okay. No, hold on. We hear Flatsoid. Why did you interrupt him?
Okay, well, first of all, having a scientific theory comes after experiments. You start with a hypothesis on what it could be, then you do the experiment, and then you have your scientific theory.
Yeah, this fucking retard bizarre.
A hypothesis, a hypothesis is a suggestion of a theory.
Did you hear me talking?
Yo, your mic is really low though, by the way, just so you know. Right. It is kind of low. Right. But Flatsoid, you should have heard it earlier on. They're changing the way that we know things. They're saying that they don't need an experiment. This is just the method that they're using.
But then, if you don't have an experiment, how are you going to validate your hypothesis?
Oh my god, now
causes.
That's better, Jeremy. Much better.
Yeah, this guy keeps saying you get a theory before you. I think he's confusing hypothesis with theory. Maybe I'm not sure what his.
Yeah, no, it all comes with interest. Interest comes first.
You observe.
And interest comes from a thought process, not from some experimental process.
You observe a phenomena that comes first. You're not going to think of something that comes, and it's going to come. You're going to create your hypothesis on after you've observed it, not a theory. Your theory comes after you've experimented.
Well, not according to Veach. He's just told us. Jeremy, what did Veach say about they can think of?
You can just think really hard. You don't need to do anything else. You can just think really hard, and you got a scientific theory.
Or you can get one from observations too.
Yeah, and what are you thinking about? What are you thinking about when you think?
I don't know, Veach. What are you thinking about when you come up with a scientific theory all in your head?
You're probably thinking about something scientific. You have to ask Feynman how he did it.
You're probably thinking about something that you don't understand. And then you wonder, why do we not understand this? What
And then-
properties
You
of
How are
want
you
to
gonna
understand it.
I know
come
why.
up
We
with
understand it because it
How are
doesn't
you
make
going to
sense.
understand it in your head after you've thought about it? How is that going to make you understand it
you construct an
No.
experiment.
in your head?
Bizarre, it
You're
don't
gonna
make sense,
you're gonna
right?
want to understand it,
you know-
which is going to lead you to want
Yeah.
to conduct an
No, it don't make
experiment.
sense. That's
All
why.
you-
That's why we
yeah,
don't
all
believe
you're
it. It don't
doing-
make sense, bro. Like, it
Yeah,
looks
all
like a
you're
cartoon
doing-
spinning ball, mate. Have you seen the Tesla car? The Tesla space ball car? It looks ridiculous. You believe that? Do you believe the sense of Tesla? Is
Hold on a
space,
second,
do you?
Brummy.
You believe
Brummy,
it?
hold on.
Brummy is lost
Brummy, let's
between the
keep on
weeds.
point here
Poor
because
Brummy.
what Veach is saying, I want Flatsoid to hear this, so obviously they can.
There's another example too, which is, I mean, if you have the current body of scientific knowledge, you don't need to necessarily do any subsequent experimentation in order to come up with a theory. And we have so many examples. Another one would be Einstein. Einstein did no experiments on his own. Einstein sat around and thought really hard and came up with a lot of thought experiments and eventually pieced out together his theory that was later, afterwards, borne out to be true via experimentation.
No, it's still a. It's
Scott,
still
you do know. You do know.
Even
You do know.
and
he-
even
Hold on,
You
go
do
ahead,
know.
Flatsoid. Go on.
Einstein's theories is just thought concepts. It's not actual scientific theory.
Sure, it's a scientific
It is
theory. It's
an actual
absolutely a
scientific
scientific theory.
Nice guy, you've got
It
to stop
is.
a minute.
Where's the hypothesis in the experiment?
Well, first of all, you don't need a hypothesis or an experiment in a scientific theory. A scientific theory is a
Yes, you
collective.
do.
No, you don't. Look up the definition.
You're saying you think a consensus is scientific. It's not scientific.
That's not what I said. I said look up the definition.
Collective thoughts of scientists. You
All
said
right,
it's
I
That's not
usually
what I
don't
said. I don't know
buy
where you're
jamming
getting this
shit,
phrase.
but you
I
guys
said
got
look
me on
up the
this topic.
definition.
Yeah, you randomly inserted consensus into the argument.
Yeah, I apologize. You guys
Not
reeled me
you.
in with that one. I
It
was
wasn't
interested in
you.
what you guys were talking
It
about.
was somebody else. But Flatsoid, a scientific theory does not require those two things at all. And moreover, we have multiple examples of people coming up with scientific theories that ended up being valid without doing experimentation. And you can also use scientific observation. Lots and lots of theories have been arrived at via scientific observation, like looking at the planets and how they move.
It's not valid until you do the experiment, though.
That's not true.
You have to do the experiment. You can't just think of it.
How can you do an experiment with the solar system? That's ridiculous.
Exactly.
No, come on. How do you do an experiment?
Astronomy's not science.
Of course,
Yes,
They
it
don't
is.
have any theories. They have no.
Come
They
on,
don't
you
have
guys- it's science.
Wait, what was the question? What was the fucking question? Hey, what was the fucking question?
Can I have the
Jeremy?
mic and explain why you can actually falsify a scientific theory and make sure if it actually holds to its own grounds and what it's actually predict? It's very simple. The reason why we do a fucking experiment is we try to eliminate causes or possible causes for a specific effect. What we can do is we can observe the same thing in different periods of times, or we can observe different things at the same particular instances, and we can try to eliminate causes based on what we observe, and we can get to a specific cause that stayed solid, stayed objective, was consistent in every time we observed the thing, and we come to the conclusion that this is the cause that is making this effect. Because once we observe different things at different places, they do change, but this thing never changed, and they still produce the same effect. In that case, we can determine that this cause is the accurate cause of that effect. Yeah, we can't really go and tangibly touch the star, or we can go on a bigger scale where we can actually see the bend of space-time, but we have other ways we can deduce it. And it's legitimate, it's accurate. That is scientific, and we can actually get predictions power. Prediction powers will actually ultimately matter.
Observational
I can predict
science
when a
isn't
clock's
actually scientific. I'm sorry. Observational
Of course
science.
they are.
I can predict when a clock.
You know why? Because it's philosophically based. You're having a philosophy based on something.
No,
that's
it's
not proven.
empirical.
To prove, you're just begging the question and you're turning
No, an observation is
That's all you're doing.
empirical, which is the very heart and soul of science.
Observation is empirical, exactly, but your cause of the effect is empirical.
Yeah, like you said, exactly. It's empirical.
You making a justifiable, how can I say, assumption based on something, and because you are saying, okay, let's say you're talking about the spheres in the sky that's rotating. What's that based on? It's based on a belief system based on gravity.
No, it's based
Gravity
on
improving?
observation.
The discovery of
What's-
Neptune. The discovery of Neptune. I'll let rest my case.
Yeah, it's a perfect one.
Have you ever seen Neptune?
Do you flatheads know how Neptune was discovered?
No,
Yeah,
not
they first
T guy. We're trying to have a
predicted it. They first
conversation
predicted
here.
it, and then they discovered it.
Exactly. They
Just wanna
predicted
figure
using
out,
scientific theory, and then they discovered it. So that's
Not
a perfect
scientific
example.
theory.
Of course, it was a scientific theory. It was the theory of gravity predicting where.
Oh, there we go. You just validated my point. Theory of gravity. You just,
Yeah, the scientific theory
your
of
whole
gravity.
observation, your whole conundrum comes from you are
Neptune
taking
was not.
gravity as your
T
foundation.
guy, you've got to let
Neptune
him
had not been
finish.
observed.
T guy, you've got to calm it down. You've got to let him finish his point.
Fuck off. Neptune. Fuck off, chemo. You cunt. So Neptune was not observed, and then we had scientific theory based on gravity to predict where we might see it, and then we observed it. So you can't say, "Oh, we did the observation." It was perfect use of scientific theory.
This is my point. You're validating my point. You're using a concept of gravity that's not scientific to say this is the cause of what you've observed.
Well,
in the meantime, all you used
if it wasn't,
they've just used ratios and cycles to predict something, and it came true. Now you're saying that's the cause, a cause that's not proven. So it's just religiously based.
Neptune, we wouldn't have observed it. We wouldn't have observed Neptune if it wasn't scientific. If the theory was useless, then Neptune wouldn't have been found.
I'm actually interested.
Really?
Okay. Can you explain? Can you substantiate that claim when you say that gravity is not a scientific theory? Can you tell me why?
Because it's a concept, and a concept that's not proven. It hasn't even got a hypothesis in the first place.
And how would you prove such a thing as gravity then? How would you?
You can't prove something that's not real.
Well,
so I mean, hold on. Are you having an assumption that you can't? You're supposed to prove you have the ability to prove anything, and if it were to be real, is this an assumption?
Dude, use words.
Okay, let me rephrase it. Sorry, it's not my mother language, so take it easy, Kurt. So what I'm saying is your assertion is if something were to be real in the physical world, it has to be able. We are capable to prove it intangibly. Is this your claim?
If it's part of physics, yes.
And
Physical
can you
nature?
falsify that claim? Can you falsify that claim?
If it's scientific, you can't falsify it because it's been factually proven.
What?
No. What?
You can't have a real argument with somebody like this.
If you have a cause for an effect, that is a fact. It wouldn't change.
Anyway, I want to get back to
If
this.
you're able to change it, then it's.
I want to get back to this bullshit claim that gravity has no gravity has no hypothesis.
What?
Back to the bullshit claim that gravity has no hypothesis.
Alberoni saw Neptune.
What's your independent variable for
you got a
space-time?
hypothesis
Let's
for
hear it.
gravity?
Yeah, the
What's your
hypothesis
independent
is that
variable for space.
the force between two objects will be inversely proportional to their masses and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. That is the hypothesis.
And this is.
What's your independent variable in your
validated
hypothesis? What's
I
your
thought
independent
that was
variable in
a
that
law.
hypothesis?
It is a law.
Yeah. Well, laws and hypotheses are the same thing. Once you
No, they're not. They're not the same thing.
They're not. But
No, they're
They're not the
not.
same. Who just said that?
Well,
God damn
all,
get back here and take care of the Australians.
A hypothesis will
Science
become a
ignorance here is
law.
high.
A hypothesis will become a law once it's been proven to be true again and again.
That's not how it works, you idiot.
Stop.
Relax,
That's
dude.
This is
not
pure
how it
comedy.
works.
It's pure comedy.
Says the guy who thinks observations can't be scientific.
Keep it
Yeah,
going,
he's actually
Flatfoot.
not
Keep it going
entirely-
because
I've
this is
been very
unbelievable.
concise in what science is. I've been
You've
very
been-
concise.
You've
in
been
what
also
science
very
is, just
wrong
because-
about it.
Can you prove it? Can you prove I've
No,
been
you
wrong about
can't
it?
prove
please?
anything, actually. None of this stuff can be proven. Your idea that facts are proven, it can't be, it's ridiculous. Nothing is proven.
If something is proven as a
why I asked. Sorry, the reason why I went to that road and asked you to falsify that assertion that in order things to be falsifiable, they need to be real in the physical world. That's an assertion, that a claim that you made, that you agreed with me that you made, and you need to be able to falsify and prove that claim. And the only way for you to assert that claim and to take it as an objective truth is for you either to take it as an assertion or a possibility, which you didn't take. You take it as a real thing. You need to actually go out and do experiment and measure and be able to measure every fucking thing in this universe, which you can't. Which you can't make that.
Measurements is not experiments. Measurements is not experiments. And thank you for proving you need experiments to have your. You just said you don't need experiments.
When you do an experiment, you take a measurement. You cretin. You absolute cretin. When you do an experiment, you take a fucking measurement. Jesus Christ.
Didn't you guys 5 minutes ago say experiment is nothing to do with scientific method? You don't need it. Now you're talking you do need experiment.
We didn't say it had nothing to do with it. Nobody said that. We said you don't absolutely need it in order to have a theory. That's what we said.
And also, let me get this straight. Your argument about why my hypothesis is not a hypothesis is because it's a law, right?
Bro,
that was your argument.
You just said theories become laws, and laws and theories are the same thing.
No, I did not say that. I did not say that. I said hypothesis.
You out of the conversation.
Jeremy, if everyone got kicked out for saying wrong things, you wouldn't be here for months.
If a hypothesis becomes a law once it's been proved beyond, again and again, and found to be the case, that's how hypotheses become laws in science. Have you?
So has it gone experiments? How does it become a law? What's the IV? What's the DV?
From experiments, yes, exactly. You do experiments and you see that it is true that the force between the two objects is the same. It's proportional to their masses and inversely proportional to the square of the distance. You keep doing those experiments and you find out it's true. And you use that idea to predict the orbits of planets, to predict where you might find Neptune, and you find that's true. You use those mass to predict where your spacecraft's going to go and how you might actually intercept Mars when it's orbiting, or intercept fucking Pluto in 10 years after you launch the spacecraft or whatever. That all proves that the hypothesis is true, and that's why it's a law.
Okay, can we take it from step one? Observation, observe.
We observe that, yes, masses attract each other.
Where do you see this happen?
Well, that was Newton's whole big thing, wasn't he? He saw that happen when the apple fell to the earth.
So falling is not mass attracting mass. Let's make an assertion that mass attracts mass. Again, what is the observation?
Step one, guy.
Well, that's to be fair. Yeah, you can take it very rudimentary. Yeah, I see a mass.
Hold on a second there, nice guy. Let T-Guy get through this.
It's fine, he can jump in.
Hold on, no, I can jump in. It's not 1v1.
Yeah, but you've interrupted him 3 times now when he's trying to get the gravity question on the go.
You can wave your hands and dismiss it because it's falling. It's not mass attracting mass. You haven't made that. You haven't made at that point. You haven't made that argument. You just wave your hands and say it. I can dismiss that without evidence as well.
Okay, falling is now mass attracting mass. What's your IV and your DV?
Beg your pardon?
You say falling is mass attracting mass. How are you going to experiment this?
What's your independent variable, he said?
The laws of gravity and the theory of gravity have been proved again and again. I just went through a bunch of reasons why we know it's true.
I'm sorry, but we are going through your hypothesis, not laws of gravity.
Neptune will be, you can use it to launch spacecrafts, you can use it to predict when eclipses will happen, you can use it to predict when the sun sets.
From the
point the sun will come up and down.
T-Guy, you're spiraling. Stick to step one.
I asked you a question, you're not answering.
Step one.
Why are you asking that question? When did he ever say that he was going to tell you all about an experiment to show gravity is real?
He brought the hypothesis, and I'm holding the so-called hypothesis. And he can't. He can't even get past step one.
Beginning to end. Plenty of people can do that here. It doesn't matter whether he can or can't.
Yeah, but we just want to know the steps in order. What is his procedure? Remember, we had a method. There was a method.
I'm not a physicist, but we just know that the theory of gravity has stood up to time, and every time it's tested, it's found to be true.
Oh, so we just know. That's your argument, is that we just know.
So to be fair, I need to explain a little bit things even more fundamental if you want to go fundamental.
If you want to be fair, you won't talk.
Yeah, hold on a second, nice guy. Let T-Guy explain this method to Flatzoid here. You're not getting anywhere. He's asking for step one.
Trying to silence nice guy. You don't pick who talks on our side. If nice guy wants to talk, don't stop him.
Yeah, but the point is, nice guy, T-Guy was explaining something.
You don't control the TT guy.
Hey, Kimo, fuck off.
And it's TT guy, not T guy.
TT
It's
guy.
one flat earther and one glober. Otherwise, it's audio chaos.
No, I just want to talk. I would just want to say something to TT guy. You need to start from the 3 laws of Newton. First of all, to establish that there's certain characteristic that goes to masses. Then we can deduce that yes, there's something that is attracting the apple when it fell from the tree because there's a reason behind it.
Yep.
That's
You
why
understood
start from
that?
3 laws. Okay.
I'm just asking
Okay.
TT guy if you understood that.
Oh, look at me. I mean, I've got a basic understanding of physics. All I'm saying is that it's just ludicrous that people come in here and say that, you know, physics. I mean, sorry, that
Oh,
gravity
here
doesn't
we go.
work.
Preaching.
Again and again.
Preaching.
It's
Look, are we
proven
going to
again and
talk about the
again.
science, or are you just going to keep
Every
preaching
day
about
you
what you
think of it.
think you know?
Okay, why have you guys just kind of pushed my argument aside instead of just?
What
I
argument?
know.
I have an argument.
You're
You
going
have an
around the
argument. What are
whole.
you talking about?
Did have an argument. First of all, you haven't had observation observed. Second of all, you're making assumption something's falling without actually having.
Excuse me, what have I observed? I've observed it's predicting the location of Neptune and then finding it. That's one thing we've observed.
Your hypothesis was
Can you
mass
explain how
attracting
that
mass.
happened? In the absence of a
Your
theory of
hypo-
gravity, how did that happen? How did that happen?
Oh
You
my
think hide
gosh.
and go seek is science?
You still.
You think
you're still
if you find
pushing
something, you just did science? I found a planet. I found a rock. I did science.
Jeremy,
You find it scientifically.
You did, yeah.
Jeremy, they don't understand. I mean, if you're looking at cycles and stuff, and you're basing something of those cycles that's
That's not
moving,
what they were
you
doing,
can
were
easily
they?
just put a unicorn. You can easily put a unicorn in there and make predictions.
But that wasn't what they were doing, though, was it?
Yeah, it is what that's what
They
you're doing.
didn't
So
find it the way Jeremy
TT
found his FLIR camera.
unless TT guy tells us step 1, he's just making things up.
Scott
Making
can
things up
explain
and
how
telling
they
you something's true.
found Neptune.
No, you said
Or you
gravity.
They also told you about
Sir,
Neptune. Why are you trying to pick and choose what he said?
I'm talking about Neptune. So, I mean, the steps were they observed the wobbles of different orbits of the planets, and they didn't fit the current
So you see a
understanding
light in
based
the
on
sky, you've named it
the
Neptune
model
because
of
it's
gravity.
an
It
ancient
didn't fit.
god.
And then someone said, "I think if there was another planet here of this particular mass, it would
This
make
guy can't.
things wobble, and I predict you should find it in this part of the sky." And then I believe it was the next fucking night that someone put their telescope up there and found the fucker. So I mean, you know, that is, you know, that
We were talking about theories. Is there a Neptune theory or no?
there's a
We were
theory
talking
of
about whether or not observation is scientific. That's what that was relevant to.
Yeah. So we have a theory of gravity. It predicts the orbits of the planets, but it didn't predict them 100%. And we use that basis of a theory to make an observation. This is your whole point was, you know, you can't do an observation. You can't do experiments in the solar system. You absolutely can. This was an experiment.
And they all lived happily ever after. The end.
The hypothesis was, if gravity is real, then
Should
we
have
should
started that with Once Upon a Time.
Oh no, it's just a story. T-Guy, you're wasting time. You're just telling us about a story here. Nothing can be validated or verified. It's just a made-up story.
Well, it was validated. That's the whole fucking point. They found fucking Neptune. That validates the theory.
Yeah, they
You
knew
obviously
about
had no
Neptune
idea
on the
what
flat
validation
Earth.
means.
They've known
I
about
don't even want to
Neptune for
bother talking
thousands
to
of
you.
years. The Egyptians have known about the stars, the planets for thousands of years on a flat planet.
They didn't know about Neptune.
What did they know?
They knew exactly their positions, locations, where they are, what they're doing, everything.
They didn't know the
And
position
how
of
did
Neptune.
they know?
They knew all of that. They
Finding Neptune.
had observations like you guys. They looked, they saw, they made predictions.
But they have no telescopes.
That's how they were able
They
to
didn't
build
find-
pyramids. You guys can't
didn't
build
find
pyramids.
Neptune.
If you could make real predictions, make a
You know, you
building
need a telescope
where the
to
sun
find
lines
Neptune.
up with the stars and the moon
Neptune,
and
Timo.
the sun.
How do you explain how we found Neptune? How do we explain
Because
that
of the
Neptune was
Egyptians.
found the day after
Egyptians.
someone said we
Observations.
find it here?
Because of Egyptian cosmology, that's how you found it. England and Europe went to Africa. They looked at all the relics. They looked at all the maps, the old ancient maps. They looked at all the old. Just ask me a question, TT guy.
Coincidence.
So they
It's
went
a
on
pure coincidence.
So they went on exploration.
guy.
What is
You might
wrong with
have
this
to
guy?
pull it back a little
Sorry.
bit.
Relax,
What's
TT
Timo?
guy.
Also,
You get on
make
so
sure-
crazy.
Please, safety first. Wear a helmet if you're going to bang your head against these brick walls here.
I know. He needs to get.
So it was a pure coincidence, Chemo, that the guy that had the idea that Neptune should be found here,
Yeah.
he told the guy that ran the telescope, and that was just a pure coincidence that he found it the next
No,
day in the
what
location.
happened-
He was scanning the entire sky.
No, what
He was
happened?
scanning the entire sky.
No, what happened? The
And he
British
accidentally found it in the location that the other guy said he should find it.
So you shouldn't talk when
But
I
it
talk.
wasn't the next day, dude.
I believe it was the next day, yes.
No, it wasn't.
How long after was it?
It was quite a protracted search. It was quite a long search.
The TT guy, you just make, like I said, happily ever after, not the end. You're just making up stories. Okay? You're just going on and on and on.
I mean, irrelevant whether it was
it's
on the next
irrelevant
day or
now,
was
yeah, because it's just a story,
yeah.
that's why.
But they were searching in this particular spot of the sky.
Oh,
not
were
the
they now?
entire
Is
sky.
this another
And,
story?
and all this came from you guys don't know what science is.
Exactly.
I mean, really.
Nice story. You just wasted that much time telling a story, then you were told it's all wrong?
It's a true story. It's a true story, Kimo.
You were just corrected by your own.
The correction is whether or not they are for a short period of time.
He might have got some aspects of it wrong, but he's right in what he was saying.
And you need to remember, Chemo, it's our time. We'll waste it as we see fit talking to you clowns.
So the idea is, Flatsoid, is that the guys here have an idea that they can have a theory without an experiment. Now, TT guy get brought up gravity, but hasn't given us an observed phenomenon.
No. I think it's very good for all of us to actually define what an experiment is and what dictates an experiment.
He hasn't given us
you're
any
gonna need a
independent
hypothesis.
variables. And what we're looking at
before
here,
you...
What is an experiment?
What we're looking at here,
like,
TT guy, is the definition of pseudoscience.
I'm telling you, I'm doing an experiment. If I'm telling you, I'm doing an experiment, what do you think am I doing? Like,
you're going to have to be, what you're going to be doing is you're going to have to be manipulating your independent variable to see if it affects the cause.
You can do an experiment without having any variables.
Or sorry, you're going to need to manipulate your independent variable in your experiment.
Nope.
See if it has
You can do an experiment without having any variables.
That's ridiculous. What?
Jeremy, how many years do you have in the field
of science?
Yeah.
According to you guys, every human that looks at anything ever is doing science. So over 40 years.
No, I don't think that's really the case.
Any human can do science. That doesn't mean you were.
How's that experiment with the fish tank going, Jeremy? I mean observation. I mean test.
Yeah. I really want to know about your scientific experience, Jeremy. You might be somebody we should listen to. Tell us all about it.
Tell us about your spherical trigonometry and how it works on a flat plane.
Or Paul, the guy who has an actual PhD in physics, could tell us about what experiments are really like.
Yeah, I mean, like for instance, the guy, for instance, the guy that discovered cathode rays. He built a tube. He put an electron source in it. He noticed that a glow was on the end of the tube. He had no variables at all whatsoever, and yet he noticed something. Do you say that he carried out an experiment or not?
No, that's not science.
Is there a theory? Is there a theory? Go ahead, Flatsoid.
Are you guys talking about the Faraday effect?
No.
He's a Catholic.
Breaking up profanity, yeah.
No observed phenomena, Paul. It's not science.
Oh, there definitely is an observed phenomena.
Man-made this observed phenomena, yes?
No, come on. Don't be so...
Okay, you get natural sciences and you get normal sciences. But yes, you can make observations based off of pure fluke. But you have to have an hypothesis for why it is.
Wait, you guys need to confine yourselves to QE-approved statements. Don't deviate from your script.
Sorry.
You fuck up when you do. You fuck up every time you do. You fuck up when you stick to the script. So carry on, Platzoid.
Hey, I don't care about QE. He can say what he wants. I'll say what I want.
So, what was your experience? We already know what Kimo and Jeremy have done. What have you done scientifically? Like, what do you bring to the table here?
What do I have to do scientifically? I mean, what do you want me to observe?
Your experience? Are you a physicist or a scientist in some manner?
No, I'll leave that to the PhDs.
Did you study science?
Yes, I had science. So why do I have to go to university and spend?
Oh, you didn't go to. Okay, no, I'm just checking. I'm just trying to get a gauge of the.
Hey, wait a second. This dude has done like time manipulation experiments where he removed like frames from a video to make something appear as different than what it actually was.
Yeah, what was the experiment there to see if rational people would notice? Well, we did.
Sorry, you guys are saying you can manipulate time. concept.
No, you've been found out to be trying to manipulate reality and the truth.
True.
That's called being a liar.
You guys are
that
buttered. No, you
discredits
guys are
you.
buttered. You guys are buttered that I know more about science than you do.
Oh, a little bit of venom in the speech there. I
Where
think.
did you learn your science class? Where did you learn it all? And you don't do it, right? So you must have read it or something, or where did you? You learned it all as an observer, right? Sitting on the sidelines.
Are you reading, or are you studying QE curriculum, or are you studying from university?
Again, me and QE have nothing to do with each other. Stop putting words in.
Is he teaching you physics? I'm wondering.
No.
Is he the one who's teaching
But
you physics?
the problem is Flatzoid. The problem is they can't keep QE's dick out of their mouths.
Every time we talk,
so
it's
funny.
Nathan this, QE this, Nathan this,
So
QE this. We the ones
kind of
talking
books
out of
are you
our
reading?
mouths.
What books are you reading? What do you do when you study science? Or like you study physics?
So now it depends what books I've read 10 years ago or whatever. Now it's all matters now.
It's not about Flatzoid. What we do, nice guy, is we look at the claim that we've been told we're on a ball. We don't have to do an experiment. We have to look at your experiment, so-called, and see if we can get results. And whether it's the Cavendish, whether it's the pendulum for the Earth rotation, whether
Chemo, that's irrelevant.
Whether
The
it's your
question is,
so-called
if Jeremy
measurements
was
or
a
any kind of
decent
these things,
guy,
whether it's space,
why isn't he picked up by somebody?
any claims that you guys make, we look at them in detail and we have a method to validate whether what you say is true. That's what happens.
What is that method?
Anyway, I just like to point out.
So, for example, when a TT guy says, I have a claim of gravity and mass attractive mass, we can be like, okay, let's take a look at that. What was your independent variable? What did you manipulate? And if he says, well, I don't know, somebody in the ancient world did something somewhere, somehow, we can put that down to pseudoscience, nothing that can be repeated, nothing that can be tested, and nothing that can be validated. So there's no point attacking Flatzoid, because all he's doing is what the rest of us flat earthers are doing, is asking the question. Do you have evidence? Do you have proof?
So Neptune was discovered 1 hour after they got the calculations about where it should be found. It took 1 hour after they started looking. And it was found within 1 degree of the position that the guy.
We're not looking for
Neptune. So I'm
Neptune.
going to now take it. Going to go. No.
We're not looking for Neptune now. If you want to see Neptune, we can just look in the sky and see Neptune, right? It's not a big deal. When we look at Neptune, there's no observed phenomenon that needs questioning. Okay, you see Neptune, you see the planets. So what? What we want to know as scientists, TT guy, is the cause.
Even though Jeremy's greatest scientific discovery was finding his FLIR camera.
No, again, all we're interested in is causes and effect. We're not just going to look at something and say, I assume that's what's going on.
Jeremy, when you were searching for your FLIR camera, what were your IB and DB?
Yeah, you carry on mocking. That's your position. Okay. And we'll ask the question to those who...
Kimo, why are you limiting yourself to such a dogmatic approach? That's almost like a religious approach to things.
Well, because that would be the religious approach to just guess.
Well, why are you doing that? No, you are saying we stick to experimentation. We are saying you have to have an experiment that has to have variables that we can independently or dependently manipulate.
You're saying that? That's what you're saying. That's what you're saying.
You have boxed yourself into a very dogmatic approach.
Jeremy.
Real science does not adhere to. You have defined the dogmatic approach.
Stand down.
Look, if this was Deadlock or anyone else now, they would have been muted. Curve, we're having a conversation about science, and you're talking nonsense.
Seriously, Chemo. This is a joke right now.
Right, exactly. You're just creating mockery and ridicule and joke. You can do that. It doesn't mean we have to respond to your ridicule and mockery.
Stop giving us such targets.
Well, I'm saying, we don't have to respond to your ridicule and mockery when we're trying to figure out that TT guy says he has scientific evidence that gravity is a thing.
That's not what he said.
Well,
I said that the theory of gravity can be used to predict things, and it predicts things very, very well. So you need an alternative explanation that explains how that such a faulty, non-existent theory predicts things so well. How does it work then? Let Flatzoid then ask.
Chemo was corrected, and he is now saying your name properly.
Let
Give him credit
Flatsoid
for
ask
that.
you a few
Props to
questions
Kimo.
then, TT guy, and go through the steps to find out if it's validated or not. What are you afraid of?
History shows it was validated.
We're not interested in the history. We're interested in what we can validate right now.
Well, I'm interested in history because that's how things. That's
Well,
you
we're
know,
not in a history class. We're scientists. We don't care about what you think happened where you
If
wasn't
you're
there.
interested in history, you would like to know your Newton.
Can I just point
didn't want to
something
even be
out?
ascribed to it in the first place. So trying
Can I
to praise
point
him for something he doesn't want. Yeah.
Can I point something out, please? TT guy just said he's the one that needs experiment, independent, and dependent variables. We're the ones that are being religious. I'm almost done. Yo, I'm almost done.
Well, I'm not going to let
ones
you
that are
keep
being
lying about what I
religious.
said. I didn't say anything.
Guy,
of the
can I
sort.
just finish? I got like one more sentence, please.
So you're going to continue to lie?
Literally, two minutes ago, you guys were the ones telling us that all you need to do is think about it. You don't need experiments. Which one is it? You guys need to make your mind
No,
up.
we didn't say that.
Jeremy, listen very carefully.
Literally just said that.
Hey, genius,
We never
hey,
said
genius,
that.
hey, genius.
We never said.
You guys literally just said that.
Genius, listen very carefully, Jeremy. What we said was it's not required. Do you know what that word means? It's not required to do experiments in order to have a scientific. Hold on, it's not required to do experiments in order to have a scientific theory. That doesn't mean that often you won't do experiments first. Often you will. It's just not required. That's what we told you.
Your mic's a little bit distorted, Veach. I don't know if you're too close or.
But Veach, then how can you claim experiment to do anything then?
What do you mean? Who claims experiment to do anything? What are you talking about?
Oh, that's better.
Even your Neptune is claimed as an experiment, even though
No, it's a scientific observation. Why would you
The observation is a subset of experimentation. The key thing is to gather data in a structured manner. That can be done either through experiments or observation.
So if I go out and I write down the tree was 25 feet tall, it had 18 green leaves. There was a chipmunk near it. That counts as a
setting up a fish tank with water and no laser through it, and only watching to see what happens. That does count, Jeremy.
Only if you repeated it against something like other trees, or you repeated it against some other baseline like time. Yes, then that's an observation over some other variable like different trees, like time, and that's an experiment. Yes.
Right, step one, Flatsoid. Go for the steps. Flatsoid.
I just want to give an example. Now, what happens if you say there's a certain type of tree that only grows a certain type of way? How are you going to know that you've observed that's the only way it grows and where it grows? What's the cause of why it grows that way?
Well, first of all, why are you wondering? Where did the idea come from?
Because it's an observed phenomenon. You said if you observe, you gain data, then you'll know what the cause is without doing experiments. So, what's the cause?
Well, for example, if you might notice that plants that face the sun grow towards the sun or something, right? You might notice that. Now, you might say to yourself, okay, if this theory that I said, this hypothesis that I have is true, then that means that if I go start searching all over the world, everywhere I go, I should find the ones that face the sun should have this, characteristic, and the ones that don't should not. And if you continue to go out and searching and you find a bunch, you can divide them into these categories and they're very neatly divided, then after you do that enough, you've gathered evidence, a lot of evidence, you can accumulate that evidence to come up with the claim that this is indeed true. The plants that are facing the sun will lean towards the sun.
And you have
You know
manipulated.
why that's false? Because it could be soil, it could be the type of water. It just could be the genome.
Not if you go around all over the world and look at all these different conditions, but then every time the thing that's the dividing thing that you can observe is the sun is what's different. Oh, sorry, my bad. Not if you go around the world.
Sorry, you just like I just said. And by the way, you just made an hypothesis. You said you don't need a hypothesis. So.
You don't need a hypothesis. I told you what the hypothesis was.
You said you don't need a hypothesis.
I never said you don't need a hypothesis. First of all, whether you need one or not is irrelevant. You can have one, and I gave you one. So I don't know what you're talking about.
If you don't have a hypothesis, you're not asking. That just means asking a question. If you've got no question, you're not doing science. No, if you're not answering any question.
Thank you. So then why 10 minutes ago you guys sort of beliterated me when I said where's your hypothesis? When you said you don't need one.
Well, and I said you made the claim that gravity has no hypothesis, and I said that's full of bullshit. That's full of shit.
It doesn't.
So that was a baseless
claim. Of course it does. Of course it does.
Show me the validated paper, please. Oh wait, you can get from any
validated paper of what?
About what?
With it's supposed to be scientifically validated, so that it has.
Why don't you go look in Google Scholar and you'll find it. Search for.
It's not there. Believe me, I look.
Of course it is. Of
It's
course
not
it
there.
is. Just search for
Get it
scientific
from
evidence of gravity, and you'll find tons.
No,
Literally, you'll
the
find
hypothesis.
thousands of papers.
No, the scientific hypothesis used to validate gravity.
Well, in those
Not that
papers,
they're
you'll discover what the hypotheses were over the years.
Oh, you mean like something like Cavendish, where it just shows torsion twisting?
Sure.
So why
Torsion twist is not
after
gravity.
so many
Of course it
years, just so many years we know gravity has existed, right? And
No,
you're looking for
go on.
one specific paper stating one specific thing about gravity before you believe it, denying the fact that we've done science, including gravity, for 100 years, easy. Why is that? Why is this one piece of paper with this one hypothesis what you're looking for in order to finally go, oh, okay?
Because he's a moron, that's why.
Because
He's a
if you
moron.
made a claim, it's scientifically validated. It has to have a scientific.
Well, it doesn't. It
has to
doesn't
be
actually
validated.
have to have that. But have you gone and looked for this paper? You have
You
not.
just two
So if
minutes
you
ago
did
you
go
said you
look
need
for it-
one. Now you say you don't have.
If you did go
You
look
got
for it and
double
failed
speak
to
every
find
2
it,
minutes.
then you'd have something. Why are you over talking constantly? If you did go look for it and you failed to find it, then maybe you'd have something. But you haven't gone to look for it.
Because it doesn't exist. It's a concept.
How can you know that a priori?
Oh, so you over talking, Veach? Come on.
Know that a
Veach.
priori.
Okay, Veach, why is gravity constantly changing? Why are they still saying it's just
for
a
you is
concept?
how could you know that a priori?
Yes, it is. Telling me
You
gravity is the same.
really exaggerate. You're really exaggerating
No,
a couple of alternative
still talking-
ideas.
no. You still think Newton's gravity is the same as Einstein's gravity?
Newton
Well,
didn't have a gravity. Newton did not have a theory of gravity. He established the laws of gravity. He knew how it worked. He knew what numerical values to aspects of it were. He had no idea, no suggestions, no experiments about what gravity was and how it was caused.
Why don't you,
Right.
why don't you tell us the difference between a law and a theory real quick? Just real quick. What's the differences?
A theory is the current explanation of a natural phenomena. A law gives you the quantities involved in the observation of that phenomena.
Right, when does a theory become a law, though?
The theory never becomes law. Laws drop out of experimentation.
So laws
So
will
you
never
don't-
become theories. and theories will
Oh,
never
Jeremy,
become
look at you
laws,
trying to
right?
catch him out. Look at you trying to catch him out, and you're just getting smacked down.
Like, yeah, Jeremy.
Why? This is
Jeremy.
TT. Hold on a second. Hold on.
I'm sorry.
TT guy just said.
You're not talking to TT guy. You're talking to Bizarre right now. And look
I
at you
don't
trying to-
care.
Look
Does
at you trying
everyone
to
see
catch him
how?
out and getting smacked down.
Does everyone see how TT guy was wrong? That was my.
Oh,
whole
I'm
point.
looking
my gosh.
I'm sorry. Sorry, guys. Are you
I was
guys saying
wrong.
natural law? Are you guys saying natural law and scientific law is the same thing?
Well, why have you just introduced those two phrases?
I was
No
just
one
pointing
uttered
out
that-
that TT
no
guy
one
was wrong.
uttered.
That's all.
Are you
Look, I
saying
mean,
natural law and scientific law is the same thing?
That's what they're saying, Flat Sword. Yeah, Bizarre's saying it's the same thing.
Natural laws like moral principles, dude.
I think I can make a case that you have a theory and a hypothesis that will eventually become a law, because your hypothesis might be, I think these two quantities are related to each other in this way, and with this mathematics, and then when someone's confirmed that hypothesis, it can become a law. How do you like them out?
Try to save yourself.
so
Try to save
So
yourself.
if it's a law, it can't be. So if it's a law, it can't be changed. Then.
Jeremy, my
It can be
research
different.
indicates that it becomes a law when it's ratified by
So
two-thirds
if
of
it's
the
a law,
state.
if it's a law, it's a fact. It can't change.
Everything is open to being changed if correctly proven.
Then it's not scientific, because if it's scientifically proven, it's a fact. That's the cause.
There's
for
no such
the
thing
now
as
you're
science.
stop.
Oh my God.
Full
You can't
stop.
prove things.
Now you're just dropping into the pedantic and philosophified side of
It's a
science.
complete
Oh,
misunderstanding
whether-
of
That's natural
philosophical.
science.
It's like they know what words to use to trigger us.
I mean, now you're talking about an argument of what's the different philosophies of science? Falsification versus inductive reasoning, all that bollocks. I mean, why do you want to tie up the argument in that nonsense?
I mean, the thing is,
Because
if
you
they want
guys-
to be hold on, if you were actually to be a sincere
The double
person, like you
speaking.
can, it's not, dude, it's not double speaking. The idea that you ask for a specific kind of type of experiment where you have an experiment like, controlled experiment, a natural experiment, and also like a field experiment, where they differ on how you do those types of experiments. One depends more of observation, where you can't really control the independent variables, but you can, by inference and by eliminating causes, you can come to the cause that you actually think that is the responsible of the effect. This is also an experiment you can do, just like what astronomy is based on, is a huge amount of data, huge amount of observation, and huge amount of understanding of the fundamental laws of physics, like gravity and chemistry, and what kind of chemicals and element produce what type of waves of light. We can deduce and conclude by using logic and reasoning and our knowledge. We can give to a theory, scientific theory, that doesn't require what Jeremy always wants from a tangible experiment, an experiment that you need to.
Thank you. That was clear, concise, beautiful.
I love you.
I just posted the Theory versus Law TED Talk so y'all can get educated.
Yeah. So if you want to get to the philosophy side of how we acquire knowledge,
Well, that didn't mean go on more.
PT guy, you should probably check that out.
TT guy, we're trying to get to the bottom of
theory versus law. I was talking about a hypothesis becoming law. Notice the difference?
Blackstone, you there?
Look, we're trying to get to the bottom of your idea that you have a theory without an experiment.
You're encountering my point that a hypothesis can become law. Did anyone have anything to say against that?
You were wrong. Just own it, bro. Just own it.
Hypothesis without observation is what? Is nothing. You have no experiment to test it.
You can't. You don't have a step one.
I said you can have a hypothesis, and then once you've
a hypothesis will never become a law.
It will become law.
A hypothesis will never become law.
Jeremy,
right.
When did you test? Jeremy, when did you test the laws of thermodynamics so that those became law?
Give me the hypothesis.
That's a natural law.
Give me the hypothesis.
Thermodynamics
is a natural law.
It's a statistical law, my dude.
Gravity's a natural law.
Statistical law.
We can hand wave things by just saying, "Oh, it's a natural law." Then gravity's a natural law. Done deal.
Natural law and scientific law is two different
If that was
things.
your example, give me the hypothesis for the laws of thermodynamics, please.
Universal law of gravitation is.
Give me the hypothesis for the law of thermodynamics.
There is no hypothesis.
Give me an example. If you guys want to fight, what I said, give me a hypothesis.
Where does it say that the second law of thermodynamics is a natural law?
If you guys think TT guy is right now,
Jeremy,
he's fucking still wrong.
The law
is the
second law of thermodynamics is the law of entropy. The law of entropy is natural law.
Oh, citation, please. Well, what's natural law? Where does it say it's natural law?
Something always has a tendency to do something.
No authority over me. I am the natural living man.
Go ahead, cheeky flatsoid. Figure this out.
It's fine. He does the want to listen. He's double speaking himself.
Double speaking. Says the man who has negative angular size, right?
Negative angular size from where?
Yeah. I don't know. You have a drop. You have some geometry of a drop over a flat surface. You haven't provided the math yet, right?
It comes up to 0.973 radians.
What?
That would be the drop, and that's what he comes up with his 0.29. So yes, it would be what you see on a flat Earth. But anyway, we're talking about science now, not observation.
Yeah, I want the formula. That's all.
So we don't deal with formulas, Chaiki. That's what we're trying to explain to you. We deal with natural.
No, he don't speak. He does. He did the math.
No. Again, we're looking at.
No. He did the math. He gave a number. I just.
Kimo, this is what Chaiki does. Kimo, this is what Chaiki does. He has to try and change the subject when they know they're getting
right.
No, I'm just trying to bring to attention to the people who they're dealing with.
Sorry, Chaiki. Can you do the math and prove me wrong that that's not the actual derivation?
Yes, I gave you my math.
Which turned out to be the same as the flat Earth math, correct?
No, absolutely not.
Yes. His observation.
No, I told you.
0.2.
I told you the observation should have been. The observation should have been 0.16 degrees above eye level, not below.
0.973 below.
What were you observing?
Because of angular size. He thinks
Angular size of
doesn't.
what?
He thinks a mountain doesn't get smaller in the distance.
No, wait a minute. How does whether the Earth is flat or round affect angular size?
He says that in a flat Earth, it's not going to drop into eye level and 3 level.
Won't go below eye level.
I didn't get that.
But anyway, like I was saying, it's about gravity now, not optical
Okay,
illustrations.
so you accept that the laws of thermodynamics are natural laws,
I
right?
have a hypothesis for them.
Yes,
Hypothesis that turned out to be
I'm talking to
psychological
Flatsoid, Jeremy,
thermodynamics.
so shut the fuck up. So Flatsoid, do you accept the laws of thermodynamics?
Obviously, it's natural.
Do you accept the laws, the universal law of gravitation?
No, because it's not a law; it's a concept.
It is. It is.
You can't base the
Universal
law
law?
on a concept. You can't base the law on a concept.
Flatsoid.
It's not.
Can I
It's not
jump
based on
in real
anything.
quick?
It's not based on concept.
Okay, quickly go and tell me where gravity doesn't set the concept. I'll wait.
You think that's a universal
laws
law?
of gravity
Why are
is
none of
not
you
a
Glovers
concept.
correcting these guys on their insane shit they're
The
saying?
laws of
Because we're
gravity are
not
not
concepts.
concepts. They've been experimentally derived.
I can't hear what they're saying, Jeremy, because you're always talking over.
Always expect the 9.82 meters per second squared. So we'll correct it when it's wrong, Jeremy.
Sorry, where do you see
So
this
you-
9.8 meters squared? Do you see it in a man-made vacuum, or do you see it in real life?
You see it in both.
No,
You see it in
you do
both.
not. Where do you see it?
Every time you drop any object in any environment, you see 9.8 meters per second of force.
What force? Couldn't just be dropping.
The force that is caused by the phenomena of gravity.
Gravity is not a force.
Gravity is a force expressed in Newton
No, it's
meters.
not.
Yes, it is a force
Citation.
because
No.
it causes.
It's a bending of space time.
Yes.
It's
which
the
causes
equivalent.
time
It has
dilation.
equivalence. It has equivalence to a force, a mechanical force. Therefore, it can be described as a
It
force.
does no work, Bazar. It's not a force.
It does do work.
Okay.
It does do work.
Okay, then I can.
All
also
of a
say
sudden,
something.
they
It's
believe
just-
the words of a
okay.
scientist.
Yeah,
and take it
weird.
literally out of context.
Then what if I tell you it's just air pushing it down? That's the force, but not gravity.
Yep.
This is what you guys are standing on.
Same
The
credence.
words of
same
George
credence.
Lutzer.
Well, Flatsoid,
No,
what's pushing the air down?
Nothing's pushing the air down.
Well, that can't happen.
So it has weight.
That's nonsense.
There you go then.
Everything is density.
No, it's not.
What is
How-
density? What's density?
Yeah, what's the formula for density?
Now, see, that's your problem because you guys put.
What's
with
the
formulas
formula?
No, you don't know. You don't know what
You guys
density
want
is,
to-
but you
you guys
invoke
want to
density.
say- you want
It
to
doesn't
say-
require a formula. Again, it's about an observed
Of
phenomenon.
course it does.
It does require a formula.
How
because
can you observe?
Timo,
Timo.
this is what they
derived
don't
from
understand.
something. It's
Timo.
derived
This is
from
what they don't
Timo.
understand.
What is it?
This is what they don't understand. Adding just because they add everything to their religious formulas. Now, because those things work on their religious formulas, now that makes.
Why
their
have you
formula-
introduced the word
we want you
religious
to
to the
show us the
argument? Why are you
formula
straw
because
Because it's
manning?
not proven.
Why are you
Science.
Because it's not
straw
proven.
manning our
Repurposing
position?
the word to not include the
Because it's not
definition
proven.
is
So-
retarded.
Flatsoid, where
Just-
do you observe density if you don't know what density is?
I'm
Same
observing
goes to
density where
Kimo.
I'm observing density where I'm standing on the floor right now.
What's the density? What is it?
It's mass over volume.
Mass? What's mass?
Exactly. What mass?
So, yeah, exactly. Yeah, you don't know what density is.
Okay. No. I know what density is, but you telling me what mass is. So tell me what mass is.
No, you invoke density.
No,
I didn't say
no.
shit.
No,
No,
you telling
no.
me- You guys are
Second.
trying to say density has got to do with
Here is
gravity.
Flatsoid's formula for density. Density equals I don't know over volume.
No. Density.
Yeah. Do you not see how you have an incomplete, an inferior theory to our theory?
There's no.
That
what
was
there
so
is-
easy.
It's not a
It's more
theory
difficult,
because we
but
You do know relative density is a scientifically validated paper. And
No,
then
relative
a
density.
specific
Yeah.
gravity.
What's the
you
formula
guys
for
only know what
relative
those things
Flatsoid.
And in that paper, if you deconstruct it, it involves gravity. Thank you.
I know.
Yeah, and
It was
Flatsoid.
first relative-
Flatsoid.
It was first relative density, and then they added specific gravity to it because they needed to have a G somewhere.
Wait, you
Yeah,
had relative
that's
density
right.
added to specific
Flatsoid.
gravity
So it's a
to-
subset of the theory of gravity.
Flatsoid, you can check from that paper what they mean with density and mass because you said mass per volume. So read from your paper that you invoked.
It's exactly
Tell us what
substance.
mass is.
Substance
Theory
gravity
of
into
lecture.
volume. Substance crammed into
Huh?
volume. There we go. Why do I need gravity now? It's just substance crammed into volume.
Substance crammed into volume. You would actually present that in a scientific paper, would you? That kind of English.
Why not? Is that not? Is that
Okay,
not
then
substance?
then substance attracts substance. There you go. Mass attracts
No.
mass.
No, mass does not attract
Yep.
mass.
That's what we
That's why-
observe.
You're not
Oh,
even
okay,
correct
then-
with substance crammed into volume. No, density
Yeah.
is a variable. Is the amount of substance crammed into volume. You need to.
So
you need to have-
substance into volume.
No,
That's exactly what I said.
That's not sufficient. You need to have the
Why?
fact that it can be a variable amount of substance in the same volume.
I'm gonna object to cram.
You
By the way,
Yeah, it's what crammed. What the hell? I mean, it's like you never went to school or something and never learned the right term.
I'm trying to dumb it
learn
down.
to edit video.
Trying to
no,
dumb it down? Are you serious?
put
You
your
don't have to
pumpkin-
dumb it down, buddy.
Come on.
We can handle it.
Yeah, don't dumb it down for us. Come on, put your big boy pants on. Use the go on. Everything you've got, give it to us. Go on, full on. Give us. Turn it up to 11, man.
What am I supposed to say? You guys don't even know what a scientific
Oh,
theory is.
maybe
You don't
because
even know what
crammed
observational
was the
theory is. You
epitome.
don't- you don't-
Maybe crammed was as far as you go. That's it. That's the extent of your capability.
I had to dumb
You
it
cannot
down for
go above. You admitted yourself that was a dumbed down term, and that's where you're at. That is your level, isn't it? That's where you
Because
live.
if you say mass, then you applaud gravity. If I don't say mass, then it's like I said.
No,
so I
you
used another.
don't.
I substituted it with another word
You
just
can
so you
call
can't
it
say.
a,
It's
you can
gravity.
call it a flurble. It doesn't matter, man. It's still gravity. It's still mass. You can
No,
call it
it's
whatever
not.
you want.
Based on your religious belief, it's called gravity. Something that's still a concept that's never been proven, still hasn't have an hypothesis, still a concept. Thank
Yeah,
you. Point
you're
proven.
arguing that, but all we're saying is everything we're saying is derived from the law of gravity, not the theory of gravity.
What law of gravity?
That a mass will accelerate towards another mass with a force determined by the relative sizes of the amounts of the masses.
So put two buses next to each other, they're going to ram into each other.
Yeah.
M1, M2 over R squared.
Yes, in theory, that would be true. Whether you could demonstrate that is another question.
Thank you. So then you just debunked your own assertion that it's law.
No, I have given you a cause for the exception of why you may not be able to see.
Sorry,
every-
sorry. You just based it on a belief that in theory you could see it, but if you could observe it is another thing. So thank you. You just debunked yourself.
Easy there, because what he's saying is that in the Cavendish type experiment, you will see masses attract, but likely if you just put balls on a table, they're not gonna attract because they're not, frictionless enough.
Exactly, because Cavendish is just torsion twisting. It's not mass attracting mass.
The torsion is a result of mass attracting mass.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, it's the density. It's a density-seeking equilibrium.
It's not, because those movements, the movements in the Cavendish experiment are a completely different direction to the gravity that we're saying exists.
Yeah, hey, if it was just torsion twisting, then why do the two masses need it be there for it to twist? Why don't it just twist on its own or twist at certain accelerations? Why does it absolutely go at a certain rate only when you put large mass objects there?
Crickets.
Sorry?
You're done. Nice
I
talking.
asked the
Bye.
guy who never did Cavendish once or seemingly admittedly never went to school, but, it's worth asking.
Yeah, did the relative density change?
Now, to be
Good
more
work,
specific,
guys.
the law of gravity is the observation of how things work. The theory of gravity is the cause of that, and Newton said must be caused by a force. Don't quote me on that. And Einstein said it's caused by something else. And likely in the future we'll have a better theory of gravity that encompasses more understandings. But all of that is entirely independent of the laws of gravity and how they work.
natural laws of how things tend to move. It's just basing your assertion that those are gravity.
There is no assertion here, Flatside. The observation of that acceleration is absolute, and we have measurements of it elsewhere where it follows that same rule.
Exactly. So it's natural law, and you're just basing it on gravity.
By the way, you're using the natural law false.
We named that phenomenon. It is always observed as acceleration, equivalent of acceleration, in fact. And we named it gravity because that's the word we use for why things fall and have weight.
Yeah, but that invokes a force, and we know gravity is not a force.
It invokes acceleration, as is stated by Einstein.
Yeah, but we want to know the cause of that acceleration.
Yeah, that's the theory of gravity. Learn some tensor math.
It's not a scientific. A scientific theory is an explanation of an aspect of the natural world that can be repeatedly tested and verified in accordance with the scientific method.
Yep, it can.
Using accepted protocols of observations, measurements, evaluation, results, where possible theories are tested under controlled conditions in an experiment. That's a scientific theory.
And we did that, and it seems to work better.
You didn't do an experiment. There's no experiment there.
Yes,
there is.
What, for gravity?
I mean,
yes.
Apparently,
for the theory of gravity, we have plenty of experiments. That was it.
No, because you just hypothesized gravity. Can't make your hypothesis a law, right?
Proved it.
Okay, it's not necessarily hypothesized. We can say that the initial idea of gravity was observed, and maybe we call it a theory later on once we have more fundamental understanding of the gravity.
No.
But under these theories, they have to be tested. So, for example, if we think gravity is causing this acceleration, we have to be able to manipulate the cause, the IV, the independent variable.
Yeah. You see that have to? That's an assertion. Can you substantiate that assertion? Why do we need to have to? Why is have to, not should or maybe or might?
No, you must have an independent variable where there is a cause and an effect. So if you see an effect, you want to know what caused that, and obviously you'll only guess if you don't manipulate your IV to the D.
Yes, that's
we can.
Gravity, Kimon. That has nothing to do with the theory of gravity.
But we can manipulate in the Cavendish experiments.
So which came first, the law? What did the law turn into the theory of gravity, or did the theory of gravity turn into the law of gravity?
There is no theory of gravity.
It's the law of gravity.
There is, yeah.
Well, they named it initially the theory, but then it became law. But then there's a history why those two names are being used until this day interchangeably. It's just like a colloquial calling of theory of gravity. Some people call it law of gravity. It's the most accurate name for it. It's the law of gravity.
Yeah, to be more accurate, there is originally there was Newton's universal law of gravity,
which we know doesn't work because it's not universal.
Jeremy, easy. Originally, there was Newton's universal law of gravity. And no actual theory for gravity. Then came general relativity and a theory of gravity. Because Newton just said it must be caused by a force. I don't know why, but it is. So there.
Yeah.
Look. If we
general
have
relativity is the general relativity is the theory of gravity.
Yep.
Yes.
So the law became the theory. You're telling me?
No, the general relativity is not a law. It's the theory of how things work.
You said Newton's is the law.
Yes, the universal theory. The universal law of gravity remains a thing. That is, Newton's observation of it. That is, a regularly observed thing.
All right, go ahead, Kimo.
That's what Cavendish relies on for his experiment. He's measuring that constant that's in there.
Like, if, for example, guys, there was such thing as like a ghost or a spirit, like let's say someone made a claim, or let's say you even saw one, how would you go about testing this thing in this way? You just see it. What are you gonna? What's the conclusion? Are you gonna come up with?
Well,
you can do different types of experiments. You can do a controlled experiment if you can. If you can do a natural experiment if you can, and you can do a more controlled experiment, a field experiment in certain aspects if it falls in it.
No, you want to find out what caused this ghost to appear. How are you going to test that?
One thing I would do is I would check
you have a
online,
guess.
so I would try and get somebody to confirm that they also see it.
What?
Yeah, I mean, it's assuming that you saw and you believe what you saw, you have a guess what is the cause of this thing.
But you'll never know what caused that thing to appear unless you have the independent. So you can predict what caused it, but you'll never know.
Can you repeatedly see this ghost?
To be a little more accurate here, because if you saw a ghost once and you couldn't do it again, then, well, maybe you saw a ghost once. Good for you. There is no theory to be made from that. If you consistently see a ghost and everybody can see it, or specific equipment can see it every day for whatever, cause and effect.
No, everyone can see it. Everyone can see it, but I'm asking you what caused it to appear. How would you know? You wouldn't know what.
You have a guess.
Let's do the difference here, because if you saw a burning bush and it told you something, and nobody else saw it.
I don't mean like that sort. I'm saying everybody can see it. Everyone can see, but they can't explain it. So how are you going to figure out?
Then we know that ghosts, and then we know that observation exists. We may not know the cause.
Once it becomes consistently observable, you can start experimenting on it. You can't just go, well, sometimes bushes burn and talk to you, and just, well, that's that. That's the law. That doesn't work. It has to consistently be that bushes burn and tell you shit. And if they don't, well, too bad. And the same thing with a ghost. Once you can see it, you can start doing experiments with it.
I don't think you're answering his question. I think
Right, so
let's
just say then. Let's just say someone. Okay, look, but again, let's say someone had they could move objects with their hands or something. Again, you'd want to test them under conditions to see if they were actually doing it. That's not what I'm asking. What is the cause?
Then I would go with telekinesis, or I would give it a name.
No, but I'm asking you, what is the cause of this? No, we're not checking if they can do it or not,
I don't know what physically happens.
We're not checking if they can do it.
At this point, the telekinesis exists.
Goodness sakes,
like gravity.
We're not asking if they can do it. We can see they can do it.
I'm saying that they can do it. I'm saying that I can see that they do it.
But
now I have a thing I can name. I can say that this person has the capability of moving something with their mind. And if they can
caused that
though?
What's the cause?
That's irrelevant. I know that they can do it. Therefore, I can call it something.
But you would just be guessing what caused this for them.
Oh, I'm not going to even attempt to guess that right now. Right now, I'm going to
exactly, Moyek. Well done. Welcome to Flat Earth. Exactly. That's the point here.
You little fucking twat.
Well done.
So now what we do is we name this telekinesis. We know that certain people can do it. Cool. Now we got to go and try and figure that out later on. But right now we know about the fact of telekinesis, just like we know about the fact of gravity.
No, we can.
Yes.
Because you've just tested whether they've got this telekinesis or not. That's all.
Yeah.
We haven't tested for gravity. We haven't tested for that force.
I tested gravity. I've seen it. It seems to work almost universally.
No, all you've seen is relative density disequilibrium.
No. Again, you
now
can get density.
When you look into the relative density disequilibrium, you find out that there's no method of determining the vector in it. So it falls apart on its own. It needs an external force to cause it to happen.
There is no vector with relative density. Any direction.
See that?
Yeah.
The gases do not just fall down at the bottom of the tank.
They do.
Any direction, as long as it the ground. Yes.
Yeah. It always points towards the ground, at least on Earth. And we can reproduce this starting from monatomic gases. We can pour them in. We can validate that they have established gradient and establish a relative density.
Now, any gases that fall
to the we can tell that your relative density doesn't. There's something that happens before relative density.
Yeah, if
I'm
gas
thinking
is
like imagine this hypothetical experiment. Like I don't know if those tools exist. Like we are in a vacuum capsule. I don't know the size, and you have like some type of sensors at the bottom and sensors on the sides and the sensors on the top. If you can get the average times, like how much those gas molecules hit either of the sides, I would say that you're more likely to find molecules hitting the bottom part.
No, gas will fill the space. Can't stop that.
No,
Except that's evidently not true.
When
And
you
it does
say
fill
fill the
space, but
space,
it fills the space with a bias.
yeah, when you say you fill the space, you're basically meaning explicitly that it will be distributed equally in all points of space, which doesn't true.
Well, always has a bias towards down, unless you put an acceleration.
No. Gas doesn't collect on the surface like that.
No, it goes towards the surface.
No, there's no gradient there in that container. Gas is
Oh,
everywhere.
there is. I actually validated that. I was not able to do it with a monatomic gas, with a single gas. But I was able to verify that inside of a sealed chamber from the atmosphere, I can change, or I can verify that there is a gradient inside of that container.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, obviously.
Now, I was not able to do it with one gas, but there's really no reason that I should have to do it
We
with
know what
multiple
your
gases
stories are
because
like.
they're equally mixed.
Okay.
And since they're equally mixed, there's no difference.
I'm really like your experiment like hits them right in the core, and I would love for Kim to rebuttal your experiment, because if he can't really contend with your conclusion from your experiment, he can't then utter the word relative density one more time. Otherwise, he will be officially like stupid, retarded.
Yeah, Moy likes to make up stories a lot.
Now, you see, it's pretty simple because we know these things. Gases at atmospheric pressure and room temperature, 20 degrees Celsius, they move.
Yeah, why can't you do it?
They move at 300 to 400 meters per second all the time, and they bounce around freely on each other. And if you let out some air, it's going to expand at the speed of sound, actually.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is just a hypothesis yet to be validated.
Yeah.
That's what we're pointing out to you guys.
Point here. Kimo, get into a point. So if the ground was letting out all the atmosphere, it would be expanding upwards at the speed of sound, and supersonic flight would literally be a kite in the air and just going up there. That would be impressive. But
like air hockey pucks.
Yeah, there's that. But all the time with all this movement, every second, 9.8 meters per second downwards is added. So the tendency of all that movement is going to be down.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah, that's the hypothesis I just told you.
No,
that's the observation.
Observed known facts, Kimo. That is not the hypothesis. That is what we know of these things.
Experimentally verified by me.
I mean, if that's what you think you know, you don't know anything then, sort.
We do.
No, you're not. You're still not replying to their points. You're talking word salad now.
No, I'm talking about an experiment.
You said it was experiment. Well, hold on. They said it was experimentally verified, right, Moyak?
Yes.
Did you want to go through that, or?
Sure.
Yes, I took a PVC. I put a phone.
Yeah. What was the
barometer was linked to my television, and I
hold on.
the barometer real time.
What was your independent and dependent variable?
What was that?
What was your independent and dependent variable? That's all I need to know.
You tell me where I don't.
That's all I need to know.
No, you tell me where I don't cover that.
Tell me what it is.
I don't have
tell
to.
me what it is.
I don't have to. I have an experiment. You can tell me whether my experiment is valid. Tell me where I missed the.
I mean, just to respond to Jeremy for a bit, your whole notion of understanding what an experiment is very narrow. It's very exclusive to a particular one thing in nature. Do you think that in everything in nature
20 citations.
You need an independent? Stop with me with this 20 citations. You have 3 types of experimentation and validation of like certain natural or certain phenomena you observe. His experiments, you don't need to go into this fucking idea of what is the independent variable.
Of course, every scientific experiment has an independent and dependent
No,
variable.
because I did a scientific experiment and it doesn't have one specified. I cover it. I'm confident I cover it with my test because I.
But why?
Let me finish my test and you tell me if it's wrong. I took the container. I kept the container.
It's wrong. You don't have an independent variable.
Jeremy, shut the fuck up. I'm trying to listen. I'm trying to listen, Jeremy.
Jeremy, somebody else trying to listen. Okay, so I took my PVC pipe, I put my phone inside of it, and I secured it at the top end of it. Well, what I'm going to call the top. Then what I did is I laid the thing horizontally so the temperature could even out as greatly or as well as I could. And I stood that pipe up, and a low pressure, or my pressure standard came up, which was showed me low pressure of like 3,000 pascals. And then when I turned it upside down, the pressure increased on the sensor. So there was obviously a gradient at the bottom of that container. Now, did I have a control or did I have an independent variable in there? I think I did, but I don't know what it was. I'm not science guy.
In the sense, like when they say a controlled variable, they're talking about a controlled experiment, and normally a controlled experiment is an experiment where it's done in a laboratory and like in an environment where you can basically have a sample, but then you can change the variables and see what effects it has on that sample.
Right.
This is their mind. That's what they don't understand when they say independent variables. So your experiment is valid, 100% true, and you're trying to understand the effect of gravity, whether gravity exists, and you try to verify whether relative density has a play in it or not. Since you excluded this variable, as you dimensioned, that relative density has no factor in the down force or the downward motion, then what you concluded that there's a different thing other than density that still makes this atmospheric or this gas gradient, which is gravity at the end.
Yeah, but you see, there is a line here. The reason we know that molecules move at that speed is because we took a big ass chamber and we measured out a distance in it, and we put in some radioactive isotopes of air in one end. And then we measured when they got to the other end, and that was that. And the variable in that would be the distance. So that's the independent variable. There you go. That was that. Now we know. The gravity is the same, because gravity is observed as acceleration. And we can basically have a tower and drop shit and determine the rate of acceleration downwards from it. And if we accelerate things faster than gravity downwards, then we get...
just for giggles, Jeremy's going.
Oh, that doesn't matter. When we accelerate things downwards in it faster than gravity, then weights, they tend to go to the ceiling and stick there instead of on the floor. And if we accelerate them a little slower than gravity, then they weigh a little, but not much. And if we match the gravity exactly, which is why we know what it is, that night.
Here I thought Jeremy was actually listening.
That shit floats. Jeremy is gonna run away because he knows he's gonna be beaten here. But that acceleration is the independent variable there. So that's that. Now you know. Done.
I may not have a specified independent variable, but it could still be a valid test. Somebody just has to now show me how I did it wrong.
Yeah.
How I didn't account for it. You know, they could say, oh, well, the bottom of your container was open, therefore stuff could have happened. Oh, okay, well, then I'll seal at the bottom. I was wrong. I'm sorry. In this case, my container was sealed.
Jeremy knows that when it gets to this point, and I can tell him how it's done, it's time to move. And, Chemo is oddly quiet, too, because, yeah.
Hey, Chemo, any thoughts on that? You accused me of lying, which is kind of rude.
There was that.
Yeah,
you asking for thought of Chemo?
No, he's pretending he's not here. Amazing.
I didn't time it, but I was also amazed at how fast the gradient established itself.
At the speed of sound, roughly.
Right. It's like, wow, it doesn't even happen.
it happens roughly at the speed of sound, so pretty fast.
Yeah, kind of like when I thought about it in terms of like emission, wiggling atmosphere, I kind of like expected it like to take like water in a glass, how it would have to take time to settle.
Yeah.
But no, it was instant. I was like, wow, that's bad. That's cool.
Yeah. And that is because of that motion I described that we also have experimental data for. This is, in fact, the reason why this whole created at the surface argument of QEs is nonsense, because we know full well that gases expand at that rate. It is one of the reasons it's difficult to make a pressure-based air gun fire at supersonic rates. You can, but you need some funny tricks to do it.
You talking like a vortex gun?
You can do it with a vacuum gun. That's one way.
Oh, okay.
The other way is if you super compress the air to much higher pressure than outside. You can and use lighter gases such as helium, where the speed of sound is faster. You can get it to expand faster.
Right, I saw that with the one of the NASA guns that they use to test high velocity particles. And they fill one tube with a vacuum, the other one with hydrogen, and then they set the whole damn thing off with a gunpowder charge, essentially a smokeless powder charge, to get the piston moving. Like, really neat setup.
The simple version is just a tube with a vacuum pulled in it and a projectile at one end, and they burst a disc. And it usually is just a rubber glove or something like a vinyl tablecloth, and they burst it behind the projectile, and the air rushing in pushes it along, and there is a similar burst disc thingy at the other end, and it comes out at impressive speeds. I saw a ping pong ball fired through a ping pong bat.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, that was but that is only when you understand actually how that works, because if you tried to do it with high pressure, you would it wouldn't basically be possible until you got to, like, I don't know, 10,000 or so psi.
You gotta move all the air out of the way as it's accelerating. There's all sorts of problems with that.
Yeah, I did a lot of airgun tuning back in the day. PCP rifles, they're basically a scuba tank that with a little hammer valve thing that lets out a little air behind the pellet. But they are very hard to get past 300 meters per second, because it's going to be air expanding in that little barrel. And
how much do you think, or with a standard air gun, if I pulled a vacuum on the barrel and put a hunk of saran wrap over it or something, how much faster do you think an air gun with a solid BB could achieve? Do you think you could get up around the 2,000 foot per second mark?
Probably not. I work mostly in meters, but probably not, because it's not large enough that you would have that gas behind it expand fast enough. And it's
so I need a much longer barrel.
It's very dense compared to the pellets or things they usually shoot in the vacuum guns. So probably not that fast, but reasonably fast.
600 meters per second.
Something like that, maybe.
That's what I was looking at. For 2,000.
By the way, Moya, just a second. Jeremy left you for his lecture at 24/7. He joined there, dude. In the middle of your explanation, he jumped from this server to that one.
Wait, I don't want to gloss over this point here. Don't you find it interesting that to convert feet to meters, you divide by pi?
Yeah. It's a little funny. It's not the. Is it the exact
that's a
rate?
coincidence.
Is it the exact rate of pi, or is it
no?
Thereabout?
Well, it can't be. Pi's not an exact number.
No, but
Penis.
to a reasonable amount of decimals.
It's 3.28. You know,
how close is it?
3.28, I think. Let's verify.
I've seen American Pie. I know what they do with the pie.
What is the factor there? What do you convert? What do you divide by?
3.28.
That sounds like too much.
Sorry. That's what it just says on Google.
Are you on the phone as well?
I actually thought it was less than pi, so that's surprising.
3.28. I thought it was a personal call, you know.
Is more.
3.28084.
That's a lot of work. Just stick with beat.
Mm-hmm.
I do. Just round it by 3 and add a little.
Why should we care what a bunch of immoral meat eaters have to say about this shit anyway?
Because you care, or else you wouldn't say anything, would you?
Well, how can you have any pudding
Stand in a hole.
if you don't eat your meat?
Water. You could become a tree.
How can you actually have pudding if you're vegan?
Oh, I'm sure they have some glop you can use for it.
My pudding has milk.
Oreos. They're made for vegans with vegan ingredients.
Non-pudding substitute.
Is that true, Tao? Is it?
That is true, yes. They were made originally for vegans, were Oreos. Because vegans had nothing nice to eat, so they thought, fuck it, we'll make them an Oreo. That's nice. There you go. You can eat that.
Interesting.
Oh, if plants are fertilized by animal products, then how can the plants be vegan? They
Just like
literally
you.
consist of former animal matter.
Yeah, just like you. You come across in your life, you know. Yeah, so Oreos are vegetarian.
Oh, the carnivegans here, ixnay on the
I was just about to reference you, Curve. I was going to say it. You're going to say nothing good today, Curve. Feeling all right today, Curve. How we doing, man? You all right?
Yeah.
Hello, Brummy. Yeah, he said lots of things okay today. He's fine.
Oh, that's good, man. You're on the right side. How you getting on, Tao?
Oh, right, chilling, you know, just having a spliff and nice day. It's absolutely beautiful blue sky out there, mate.
I know. I'm just doing a run now. Just inhaled a lot of good energy from the atmosphere. You know, this gas pressure I can take.
Yeah. Work out why you're fucking suffocating at the end of your run. Yeah, that's because you're fucking unfit, you knackered cunt.
I am literally a big fat wobbling card at the moment.
It's a jelly. It's fucking lobbers around everywhere. Yeah, I know.
My ankles can't. When I'm running up the hills, my ankles are they feel like they want to snap. Like my body's just. My body's not. I need to lose this weight. Like it's like running around with a rucksack. I'm that fat. It's horrible.
You can feel like big marshmallows in a pair of trainers.
Yeah. It'll take a good few weeks and it'll be gone. Good few weeks training.
Yeah, I train through it. They'll fucking kill you or you'll kill it.
They'll go over to see Sean G and wrestle him, powerbomb him.
Yeah.
I want to beat wrestling.
Inverted power slam on his head. Yeah.
That's what I want to do if I beat Sean G at his own game, man. That'll do. That'll make me feel good inside. That will.
Hit him with a joystick.
Fondle him.
His own controller, yeah. Strangle him with a car. No, you can't fucking bitch. Sorry. Just got carried away.
No, Sean's a beast, man. Sean's a beast. He more than likely would fucking just wiggle his way around.
Like Sean G, he's alright. I talk to him a lot. I always say hello. He's always been pleasant to me, so no, I've got not really.
Have you seen his wrestling? Have you seen his wrestling?
I haven't seen pictures of him, no.
He's got footage and that. He showed me some videos of him. He's got it on YouTube. It's like him beating about 5 or 6 people. I've seen him do. Really really wiggly. Yeah, he's really good. Yeah, technically good.
Powerlifter and all that, fucking hell.
No, he's like a small, small little strong lad. And he takes his time and climbs over your body and gets in positions and just sits his weight in the right areas.
Yeah, but one good punch and you break his legs.
He's like a ninja snake.
yeah, like a little worm, like a little leech. little maggot.
Black fucking eye slit on and a black jacket and cape and shit. Yeah, little worm. I can imagine it.
It's funny, Brummy, your description of him wiggling around on his stuff is really funny because that's what when I was looking at him, God, he's just wiggling all over that guy.
Super worm.
He is. He wiggles his way.
Jim, the super worm. That fucking leg. And that suit, didn't he?